Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is the game preview, Tottenham Hotspur versus Everton tomorrow. Sean Dyche's Toffees travel down to North London to face Ange Postecoglou's Spurs side. They currently sit 5th in the Premier League table, 10 wins out of the 17 games they have played so far, 3 draws and just the 4 defeats, sitting on 33 points, which is only 6 points behind league leaders Arsenal at the moment. Obviously, they've had a pretty decent start to the season. They've had a little bit of a blip of late. However, it seems like in recent weeks they are coming towards the end of that blip. A 2-0 win against Nottingham Forest last time out, a 4-1 win against Newcastle before that. Obviously, as I mentioned, had a couple of games where they'd not picked up great results. 2-1 defeat to West Ham United, a draw with Manchester City, which was a huge result for them. 3-3. They did lose to Aston Villa, they did lose to Wolves and Chelsea prior to that, but before that they were pretty good. I think Ange Postecoglou won the Manager of the Month award 2 months on the bounce, maybe even 3 months on the bounce. So they have had a incredibly impressive start to the season, and when they've had a little bit of a blip, which all teams do tend to have, they've come out of that pretty well with a couple of big wins on the spin, as I've just mentioned. So this will be, without a shadow of a doubt, an incredibly difficult game for Sean Dyche's Everton tomorrow, obviously coming off the back of a disappointing defeat in the Carabao Cup earlier in the week, a game that wasn't the greatest performance that we've ever seen from an Everton side. However, it wasn't bad because there was a lack of effort or a lack of determination or a lack of desire. It was just a case of, well, firstly, I think everybody seemed absolutely shattered, and secondly, the injuries that we've currently got at the squad at the moment, a number of key players out injured, didn't help either. And as I said, it was a pretty dross game of football that unfortunately ended in a penalty shootout, and there has been a lot of fallout to that defeat to Fulham, and obviously a lot of I suppose, not negativity, but certainly disappointment, considering it was a quarter-final and considering we were, one penalty kick away from being in the semi-final. Obviously, as we've since found out, we would have faced Liverpool in the semi-final of the competition, which, isn't ideal, but we always knew that, with them being in the competition, there was always the chance that we would have been drawn against them. But, like I said, for me, it's disappointing and it's frustrating, and I get that, and I understand the frustration with certain players for, the way in which they took their penalties, or, Amadou Onana has obviously come under a lot of criticism of late because of his penalty kick, but I also think that it isn't the end of the world, and whilst it's disappointing and whilst it's frustrating, I think had we have not equalised, with 5 minutes to go and taken the game to penalty shootouts, I don't think there would have been many people that were particularly upset about it. Yes, it wasn't a great performance, but at the end of the day, we conceded a incredibly unfortunate own goal that, Fulham didn't really deserve. Fulham never really threatened at any other point throughout the game, and we just couldn't break them down, and when we did, we obviously put ourselves in a really good position, and then threw it away at the end of it. But it isn't I don't think it's a case of stop the world, I want to get off, everything's absolutely awful again. I think we've got to just look at that game. As I said, I'm not saying don't be disappointed, I'm not saying don't be frustrated, but it's important that we put it to one side now and we come out tomorrow and we show a reaction, because that is the most important thing. I don't think any of us were ever under an illusion that Everton were going to go the rest of the season unbeaten. When I sat here and I done the instant match reaction after the Burnley win last weekend, I didn't for 1 second in my mind think that Everton were now going to go from, that game until the end of the season winning every single week, and they were never going to have a bad result, or they were never going to have a bad performance. We all knew that, at some point there was going to come a day where we don't particularly play well, or we make mistakes, or we don't take our chances, and ultimately we're made to pay for that. What is always the most important thing is not about avoiding those games, because you'll never avoid those games. You will always have performances where you're just not quite on it, where it's just not quite your day. It's all about how you react to those bad days. It's all about how you react to those off games. And I think that reaction is important from both the fans and the players, and obviously the manager as well. The players need to show a reaction tomorrow. This will be an incredibly difficult game, of course it will. Tottenham are in good form, have had a really good start to the season, and have got some incredibly talented players. And as somebody who's been to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium a couple of times to watch Everton, we've never, ever done well there since the new stadium has been opened, other than that one game at COVID when we beat them 1-0. Like I said, the couple of times I've been, it's been an absolutely horrendous game of football, and it's been an absolutely horrendous evening for Everton. So hopefully that isn't the same tomorrow. But as I said, the reaction needs to be from the manager, the players, and the fans. The reaction from the players needs to be a better performance than what it was against Fulham, because let's have it right, it wasn't good enough against Fulham. And I know a lot of the performance is being clouded because of the penalty shootout and because of the way in which we went out, and the fact that we could have won it, and we probably should have won it if maybe it wasn't as poor of a penalty as it was from Amadou Onana. But let's not get it twisted. It was a really, really poor performance, from Everton Football Club. It was a really poor game of football, to be honest with you. I don't think Fulham offered much whatsoever, and I don't think Everton were much better. I think we were the better team, but I don't think we were the much better team. So the fact that we've gone out on penalties, I think it's clouded what was a pretty underwhelming performance, because of the fact that we were so close to going through, and we should have gone through, and therefore, had we have gone through, we wouldn't really be talking about how bad the performance was. We'd just be buzzing that we'd gone through. So, the performance needs to be much better than it was on Tuesday night, because it wasn't good enough. And if we perform like that, then Tottenham, I think, will find it relatively comfortable to beat us tomorrow. But there also needs to be a positive reaction from us as fans. And I know, you might be looking and listening and thinking, wow, Cam, that's very hypocritical of you. You're usually the one that, is jumping up and down and kicking off after after something happens. You're not typically the level-headed one. But as I said, in the instant match reaction to that Fulham game, I've realised a lot over the last couple of weeks about this Everton side, about this manager, about the situation that we're in, about the situation that we've been in over the last couple of years, and that is that this Everton squad now, and side now under Sean Dyche, is doing much, much better than what we would have expected. Had you have said to me in May, this Everton team should be challenging for the European position in the league, however, you won't be because you'll have had the points deduction, but you'll still be 8, 9, 10 points clear of the relegation zone, because you'll have won 4 games on the bounce, 4 clean sheets on the bounce, beaten Newcastle, Chelsea, gone away to sides, that are in and around similar position to your Forest, Burnley, and won there as well. I'd say you're absolutely off your head, because firstly, Everton don't win games away from home, and secondly, when Everton are put in positions of, when Everton are put in a position where we're punished for something that isn't necessarily our fault, and it's a situation that we haven't really got any control over as a fan base or as players, we don't really react to those situations well. Whereas this season, we have reacted to that situation, and we've reacted to that situation incredibly, and the performances of late have been absolutely unbelievable. And I'm not going to let one underwhelming performance that ended in Everton losing a game of football on penalties. Really, we didn't lose the game of football. We drew the game of football, but losing the tie on penalties, I'm not going to let that all of a sudden completely change my mind on how I feel about this squad and these players. We always knew there was going to be a difficult period in the season. We always knew there was going to be games in which we struggled in. And I think as much as I understand the need for this football club to win a trophy, and as I've said before, if you have watched this channel for more than a year, you will know that every single season, before every single season starts, I sit down and I say it is an absolute must that Everton challenge for the domestic competitions this season, because we as a football club have gone far too long without winning a trophy, and we absolutely need to take every opportunity we can to try and win one. Not a case of, oh, well, we don't mind going out of this competition because it's the Carabao Cup or whatever. We should be competitive in every competition. Whilst I agree with that still, and I still believe that, I also understand that it's incredibly difficult to win a domestic competition now. It used to be a lot easier When I was growing up, you used to see loads of different teams winning the Carabao Cup, loads of different teams winning the FA Cup. Now, I ask a question to everybody watching in the live stream. Can somebody tell me the last time a non-Big Six, now by that I mean somebody that isn't Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham or Man United, can you tell me the last time a side outside of that group of teams won the Carabao Cup? Because I honestly can't remember. I know Leicester won the FA Cup fairly recently. Before that, you'd have to go back to Wigan in 2013. So that's 2 teams in 10 years outside of the Sky Six, if you want to call it, that have won the FA Cup. When was the last time a non-Sky Six side won the Carabao Cup? And I'm not using that as an excuse, but what I'm saying is there's a reason for that. And it's because those sides towards the top of the league, and by towards the top of the league, I mean not necessarily in terms of their league position at the current moment, because obviously Chelsea aren't in the top 6 in the league, but they are in the top 6 in the league in terms of their revenue, in terms of how much money they bring in terms of how much money they spend, in terms of how many trophies they've won. They are right up there, as sort of one of the top teams in the league. Those sides, because they're able to spend £1 billion within a year, and Everton are deducted 10 points for spending an extra £20 million on a stadium, because teams like Liverpool are able to go out and bring in hundreds of millions of pounds worth of players, same with Manchester City, same with Manchester United, those teams are able to not even take the domestic competition seriously and yet still win them. Because their second string team, the players that they're bringing off the bench, are just as good, if not better, than the majority of Premier League first team players. Liverpool played a second string side on Wednesday night, and they wiped the floor with a West Ham side who are doing quite well at the moment in the Premier League. They're 9th in the league table on 27 points. They're obviously doing well in their European group. They won a European competition last season. So my point is that whilst I'm extremely frustrated and I'm extremely upset about Tuesday's result, I also understand that to win a domestic competition in this day and age is nigh on impossible unless you've got 22 players that are top level and that are able to compete with Chelsea's £1 billion squad, or Liverpool's hundreds of millions of pounds worth of players, or Manchester United's hundreds of millions of pounds worth of players. It's really, really difficult. So therefore, I'm not going to let it completely ruin the mood. I'm not going to let it completely ruin how good it has felt to be an Evertonian at the moment. The fact that we went out on penalties in a game that was not a great game of football either way. I thought both teams were underwhelming. So, like I said, it's important that we show a reaction tomorrow. It's important that the players show a reaction. We spoke earlier in the week about Amadou Onana coming out and almost proving to us why that was just a mistake. We've read, I've heard a lot on Twitter over the last few days or so about Amadou Onana's attitude. He doesn't want to be here. He's selfish. He should never play again. It's nothing to do with it was a mistake. He was selfish. He wanted all the limelight. Whatever it might be, Amadou Onana now has a responsibility to go out and show that it was just a mistake and that he is willing to give 110% every time he puts that Everton shirt on. And I think that is the case. I don't think Amadou Onana stepped up to take this penalty and thought, I don't care if we go through, I want to look good. I thought he was a little bit arrogant. I thought he was a little bit cocky. I thought he wanted the limelight a little bit. But I don't think it was from a bad place. I think he's been outstanding this season, and I think in near enough every game he's played this season, he's put in a really, really strong performance. So I expect that again tomorrow with Tottenham. And I expect the fans to be as positive as they have been over the last few weeks, because it is absolutely imperative, and I cannot stress this point enough, it is absolutely imperative that we do not let that one game of football on Tuesday ruin how good we have felt in recent times over this Everton team, and ruin how well this Everton side has done over the last couple of months or so, because it's done exceptionally well to be where it is. It really, really has, and to pick itself up after a situation that was through no fault of the players or the fans. So that for me is really important. I think we've got to get behind them, and I don't for 1 minute doubt that those Evertonians travelling down to Tottenham tomorrow won't. By the way, because I've watched Everton in it. I went to Tottenham a couple of years ago when we were in a terrible situation. We were losing every week. The players didn't particularly look like they cared. Tactically, we were terrible, and yet we still made a ridiculous amount of noise when we went there. So I've got no doubt that the fans tomorrow, the travelling Evertonians, will be absolutely unbelievable, as they always are. But it's then down to the players to put in to show us a reaction. And I'm not saying that means I expect us to go out and win this game comfortably, because Tottenham are a good side, and Everton could go out tomorrow and put in a really good performance and still come away on the wrong end of it because of how well Tottenham are doing at the moment and how good Tottenham are. But it's about putting in that performance. It's about going out there, working hard, battling, and doing what we know we can do away from home. We've won a lot of games away from home this season playing in one specific way. Now, yes, we've not really played the side with as much quality as what Tottenham have got, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't attempt to go out and win the game as we do every week tomorrow. Like I said, the most important thing in football is not avoiding losing games of football, because you will never avoid losing a game of football ever. How many sides have there been in history that have gone a full season without losing? Arsenal have had the Invincibles. There's maybe been a couple of other teams in this country, certainly, or in this, in Europe, that have gone a full season unbeaten. Fine, a couple of sides in 100 odd years. So, you never ever, unless you get incredibly lucky, gonna go a season where you don't lose a game of football. It's about how you react to losing a game of football. Because if you win 4 on the bounce, as Everton have done, and then you lose a game, and then your head drops, and everybody starts to panic, and the anxiety comes in, and then you lose another game, and then you lose another game, and then all of a sudden, it goes from, a decent season and a good feeling to just, well, you won a few games on the bounce, and then you went back to being your typical selves. Whereas if you win 4 games on the bounce, and then you lose one, and then you think, do you know what? That was just a bad day at the office, let's pick ourselves up and go again. And then you win the next one, and then you win the next one. Then all of a sudden, that one game that you've lost becomes an anomaly, and nobody really thinks about it or worries about it. So the reaction tomorrow for me is key. We know Tottenham have got some incredibly talented players there. We know the likes of Son, who, as I'm sure you'll know if you've watched the channel for a long time, I'm not a huge fan of personally, but there's absolutely no doubt in his talent. He's an incredibly talented footballer. Richarlison there as well. Obviously, they have got the likes of James Maddison in there, but he is injured at this moment, I believe. Brennan Johnson, who obviously signed from Nottingham Forest, we know he's a decent player. Basuma, I believe, is suspended for tomorrow. Kulusevski, who for me is a really, really talented player as well. They've got some really top quality, talented footballers there at Tottenham. Their back line is really impressive as well, and is much, much better now than what it has been for a number of years, in my opinion. And the goalkeeper as well, Vicario, is a huge, huge, huge improvement on what Hugo Lloris has been for a number of years for them. So it will be, without a doubt, a difficult game. Ange Postecoglou has done a really, really good job so far. And for me, the most impressive thing, ironically, about Ange Postecoglou's time at Tottenham is how they've reacted to the difficult spell they went through. They had a couple of games where they had a few injuries and a few suspensions, and the team had to be changed, and they'd lost a couple of games. But instead of allowing that to dictate their season and to ruin their mentality, they picked themselves up, they got a couple of players back, they went again, and now they've won a couple of games on the bounce again now, and now they'll be confident. And that's what it's all about. It's all about how you react to a bad result, how you react to a poor performance, as opposed to trying to avoid a poor performance, because that's never, ever going to happen. Never going to happen. And I'm sure if Everton go out tomorrow and put a brilliant performance in and beat Tottenham and win and make it, 5 Premier League wins on the bounce, I'm sure the majority of us will have forgotten about the Fulham game fairly quickly. So, yeah, it will be difficult. It'll be difficult. And by the way, I'm not saying I expect Everton to go out and beat this Tottenham team. I'm not saying that we can't, because we absolutely can. They are a very beatable side, a very, very, very beatable side, and they've shown that already this season. They've lost a few games. I know, a couple of the games they've lost that have been against sides that are doing really well at the moment, but Everton are doing really well at the moment. And, they lost to West Ham at their stadium. I genuinely believe West Ham are a very similar side to Everton in terms of their quality, in terms of their squad size. They're probably doing a little bit better than what we are at the moment, but I like to think West Ham are quite similar to us at the moment, and they were able to go there and beat them at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, so there's no reason why Everton can't, but that isn't the expectation. I'm not saying if Everton don't win tomorrow, I'll be absolutely fuming, but the expectation is we see a reaction in the performance, and we see a positive reaction from these players as well, because that, for me, is what's really, really important, is that they can go out there, they can understand that Tuesday night was a little bit of an anomaly and wasn't a great performance and was disappointing, but they can also appreciate that can be a one-off and then go and show that reaction tomorrow. It will be difficult. It will be difficult without a shadow of a doubt, but we know we've got a couple of players back that have previously been missing. We know Vitaly Mykolenko is expected to be back fit, according to the manager. Abdoulaye Doucouré not. There's rumours that Abdoulaye Doucouré is going to be out for around a month or so, which is incredibly disappointing because he has been one of our better players this season. But having Mykolenko back is huge because it provides that balance in the defence, and it means that we're not having to, sort of put somebody in at left back that isn't necessarily a left back. The Blues says I'd take a draw. Everton Select Dice says absolutely I'd take a draw all day. I think a draw would be a really, really positive result. I really, really do. Anyway, let's get into our predicted starting 11, then, brought to you by Fan Hub. As always, if you haven't downloaded Fan Hub, go down in the description, download it. It's completely free. It helps out the channel massively if you do that as well. As I said, you can build up points on Fan Hub. The more points you win, you can exchange it for things like clothes and pints of beer and all of that sort of stuff as well. But let's get straight into it. In goal, Jordan Pickford. Yeah, like I said, his distribution was a little bit off on Tuesday night, but ultimately that isn't nowhere near enough of a reason to take him out the team. He's our number one goalkeeper, and there's no real reason as to why he wouldn't play tomorrow unless he picks up an injury, which such would doesn't happen. Left back, I am going to go with Vitaly Mykolenko. Jared Brandtwaite done a really, really good job out there on Tuesday night. I thought he was really solid. I think we would have been better playing a 5 at the back because there was a couple of moments where Jared got forward and got into good crossing positions and got into a good area in an attacking sense, but obviously because he's a centre-half, he couldn't really make anything happen from there, which was disappointing. Had we have maybe had McNeil in that position, maybe we'd have got more out of. But as I said, Mykolenko for me has been one of our best players this season. He's been absolutely outstanding, and if he's fit and available, then he absolutely should start without a shadow of a doubt. Two centre-backs then, I am going to go with Jared Brandtwaite and James Tarkowski. You might say, that's a bit harsh on Michael Keane, Cam. He's done well of late. Yeah, obviously, it was his own goal on Tuesday, but it wasn't through any fault of his own. It wasn't it wasn't like it was an absolutely terrible own goal. It was a deflection that he could not really do anything about. And yes, he was absolutely brilliant against Burnley, but we can't really take one good game as a as a reason to have him in the starting 11 every week. That partnership of Jared Brandtwaite and James Tarkowski had been absolutely exceptional of late, and it was only broken up through a need for it to be broken up because of injuries and squad issues. So for me, as I said, if Mykolenko's back and we've got that balance back at the in the defence, then I think the two centre-halves pick themselves. I know that might be a little bit harsh on Michael Keane, and I understand that, but he isn't better than James Tarkowski, and he isn't better than Jared Brandtwaite, and it's just as simple as that. Right back then, I'm going to go Nathan Patterson. The manager still said that it's probably going to be too soon for Ashley Young and Seamus Coleman, which only leaves one option. Yeah, again, I think he's been a little bit hot and cold I think he's been a little bit hot and cold of late. Some good performances and some moments in games where he just looks like he isn't ready yet, but he's ultimately never going to be ready unless he has a decent run out in the side and unless he gets an opportunity. And, we haven't really got any other option either. So I think Nathan should start, and hopefully he can put in a positive performance, because if he does do that, then it will definitely be to the positive impact on the football club. Midfield, then, I am going to go with the usual midfield. Adrissa Garnagay. I'm going to go with Amadou Onana. I'm going to go with James Garner. Obviously, the absence of Abdoulaye Doucouré means that they're the three likely midfielders. They're the three only midfielders that we've got, to be perfectly honest. As I said, big game for Amadou to step up and, show that it was just a mistake the other night, and that, he's sorry about it, and that he's willing to rectify it. And it's a huge opportunity for him to do that in tomorrow's game. Obviously, Garnagay, who I thought had a decent game on Tuesday, to be fair, missed the penalty as well, which has been overlooked a little bit. But I thought he had a relatively decent game. And James Garner, who's been pretty faultless recently. On the left-hand side, then, again, I feel like these pick themselves at the moment. Dwight McNeil, Jack Harrison on the right. There's been a little bit of discussion at the moment around Arnaud Danjuma and whether or not he deserves an opportunity tomorrow because of how good he was off the bench on Tuesday. I thought he done well. I thought it was definitely his best performance in an Everton shirt off the bench. I just think the manager will pick the same too. I think Dwight McNeil is almost guaranteed the space at the moment, because I think he's doing quite well at the moment, as well as the fact that there's not really anybody else that can play there. And Jack Harrison, yes, you could go with Danjuma, I suppose, and give him a run out there, but I just think the manager's more likely to go with Jack, I'll be honest. And then up front again, a little bit of discussion. Does Beto deserve an opportunity in this game? Obviously, come off the bench, scored again on Tuesday night to get us the equaliser, and then stepped up and took his penalty really well. I wouldn't be opposed to Beto starting. However, I spoke to my dad about this yesterday, and he made a really good point. I think Beto off the bench is much more impactful than Dominic Calvert-Lewin off the bench. And I think if Beto starts and doesn't perform because he's doubled up on, or he's not quite in the game, then I think we've got less chance of bringing Calvert-Lewin on, because I think Calvert-Lewin isn't really as impactful off the bench as what Beto is. Beto is unorthodox. He's different. Nobody knows what he's going to do. I don't even think he knows what he's going to do. So when he comes off the bench, he provides that bit of unorthodox manner, and opposition defenders who are already 70 minutes into a game and a little bit fatigued and a little bit tired are not sure how to deal with that. Whereas I feel like Dom off the bench, maybe, a little bit disrespectful to Dom, but I just don't feel like because he's not as unorthodox as he's more polished, he's more tight-knitted, he's a little bit better on the ball. So I just feel like he'd be less impactful. But I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Beto start, and I think he probably deserves it given his form of late. There you go then. That is our predicted starting 11. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to go and follow us on FanHub. Download it completely free and helps us out. A big thank you to them for getting involved as always. So, yeah, this will be a difficult game. Without a shadow of a doubt, it will be a tough one. But it's one that we can get something out of. And that has got to be the belief. The belief of late, I feel, in every game has been, we can win this. We can get something out of this. And the performance has shown that has been the belief. That's got to be the same tomorrow. We will know very early on in this game whether or not these players believe they can win it. And that's not me saying if they're not 4-0 up in the first half, then they don't believe they can win it. You'll be able to tell by the performance. And they should believe they can win it, because they absolutely can. Big game, big opportunity. Let's see how it is. Don't forget to give the video a like if you have enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you are new as well. We'll be back with the instant match reaction and the player ratings tomorrow, so look out for those. And yeah, let's hope we can put in a really positive performance and get what would be a huge result. Anyway, big thank you all for watching. Leave a like if you've enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new. Up the toffees. If you don't watch the instant match reaction or the play ratings tomorrow, have a wonderful Christmas. There'll be loads more content before Christmas Day anyway, but have a wonderful Christmas, have a wonderful New Year. Up the toffees. See you later.